Welcome to Backyard Bows. Hey, welcome to Backyard Bows. I'm Brandon. We have another APA bow up here. This time I went with the King Cobra dangerous game. So last time we did the Black Mamba 31, which is kind of right in that axle range that I like. A little bit more silkier, smooth type bow is kind of what they're claiming. And then, you know, the dangerous game, King Cobra, this is pure kinetic energy, made for big game. And so what we did something a little bit different. And what I've done, and I've had the option with a couple other companies, but we went ahead and kept all of the draw weight right at 70 pounds, just for the speed test to not kind of mix up those variables and get everything, you know, that kind of fair playing field. But with the DG, I went ahead and went up to an 80-pound limb just because I wanted to see a little bit of a difference. And we'll kind of factor that into the grading the best that we can. And the reason I did that is when I talked to the owner, this particular bow can actually go up to 90-pound draw weight and 100-pound draw weight. And then he also said they ran a test where at, I think it was 90 pounds, this thing shot through 3 deer carcasses, complete pass through. That kind of made me, you know, interested in kind of bumping up those that draw weight a little bit and kind of seeing the difference in them. So the bows are very, very similar with the features that they have, which we will go over everything. These are the easiest bows to set up. They make this the most simplest process to kind of get a bow, you know, at your home and to get it fully set up. I mean, in a matter of minutes. I'm talking 30 minutes this morning. I kind of put this thing together and here we are ready to fire. And we'll kind of go over all those features. I think all of the features on these bows are worth mentioning twice. We kind of went over them in detail when we did the Black Mamba review, but we'll kind of go over everything again here in a second. So let's just start with the riser. Really cool risers. Obviously, the first thing that stands out to me is the handle. It kind of has a front handle, which places your bow, your sight, everything that's important kind of facing up. It's really easy to walk with, nice and comfortable. It's kind of a front bridge, like I said last time, kind of comparably to the Hoyt back bridge, but I love that feature. They also have this fang right here that's built into the top of the riser for you to just be able to hang your bow right onto a limb instead of having to, you know, have a limb hanger or something in a tree, or if you're just walking along, you get tired, you kind of want to just hang it up, you can really easily and simply. In the middle of that fang, there is a mounting system for a camera, which is really cool. And then also one of the main differences that you will see between these two bows, besides some of the specs, is that they have these dampeners right here underneath this limb and limb pocket. And I think that obviously has to do with, you know, bumping up some of these weights on these. So they also have these twin flex limbs, so single limb top and bottom. You know, there's a flex to the front, and then they thicken up right here in the middle, and then there's another, you know, section in the back where the cam slides in, and that also flex, and I think that's where they can get up these really high draw weights, is because they have kind of 2 flexing points on those limbs. I'm really eager to see how this thing is going to shoot and hold and pull back. 80 pounds is a lot. That's not something I'm used to. Single limb, really thin platform. Man, I'm really interested in see how this thing's going to kind of hold in full draw, especially with these really small cams. One thing I did say about the Black Mamba is that it wanted to jump a little bit on you. I can imagine this being at 80 pounds that it will want to jump a little bit more, but we'll see. Something else with the risers, you kind of have this little tool center is what they call it. There is a spot to sharpen your broadhead, a field knife. There is a place to tighten and adjust, loosen broadheads, multiple different broadheads, your knocking point, and then also they have what they call a cam lock pen, and it's this little pen that you can pop out, and it does multiple different things. So one of the main things that it does is that if you repress your bowstring, and there's these spots right here on the cam that you can slide it in, which allows you to rechange your bowstring and your cables in the field. I love that. And then also that same pen, if you put it in right here above your rest burger holes, it will align. And this is one of the easiest things. It's kind of a no-brainer. Everything is laser etched. So it will align your rest left and right, and then there's laser etched lines into the riser that allows you to get your rest vertical up and down, and just within a matter of moments, your rest is perfectly set. Love that. and that little pin just slides back in here, you lock it down and you have it with you at all times. So you got almost a 33-inch axle to axle, under 6 inches for the brace height, and that's what's gonna help bring that kinetic energy. So again, this is more of APA's speed bow. This is kind of that big game, bring the energy. You know, this is that bow where the Black Mamba series is a little bit more smooth drawing bow, a little bit more forgiving, longer brace height. But again, I love getting them both in here and kind of getting to compare them. Man, these bows, as I mentioned before, he has thought of everything. So let's jump to some of this really cool technology. So 2 things with the tuning. You got this micro tuning system here on the cable guard. And that allows you to kind of tune your bow. Same you see from Bowtech, they have their self-tuning system, Elite has theirs, and then APA has theirs, which is really uniquely placed. It's the only one where you see it on here on the cable guard. But again, you unloosen the lock screw, you can adjust right, adjust left, you can micro tune your bone very easily. It's also very simple with this variable yoke technology. So instead of your yoke splitting, it's a cable all in itself, and it runs through a loop, and so it will center itself. You know, with the pressure of the bow, it'll center itself perfectly on that cable, which I love that, and that makes a lot of sense to me. So instead of trying to perfectly measure out each side, since it just sits in this little loop, it'll kind of just perfectly center itself where it needs to be. So that system is really helpful as well. I feel like that's just really simple and easy to use. You know, you have these cams here, 1/2 inch adjustments, 24 out to 30, I believe. You do need to change the mod for each 1/2 inch increment. It does have a adjustable draw stop on the back. I wish the let off would change, because on this one, I can imagine it might be nice to have a 90% let off. But again, it only comes in an 80. So we'll see here in a second when we start drawing this thing. You know, and something else that I think the next time I do one of these, I'm gonna get one of their rests that they custom make. And then I'm going to use it in the way that they advise you. And really they have these, they call them a torque-free limb anchor. So instead of your string being connected into your cable, it runs down in between your split limb. And there's these little buttons that they attach to on top and bottom, which kind of perfectly centers you know, the weight distribution of that rest. And then one of the last things that I don't have it on this one, I still have it on the Black Mamba, but the mass transfer module, I love that. That was one of my favorite things from the bow, the last bow, is you can drive it up and down your string stop. You can rotate it in and out. It's really slick. It doesn't hang off your bow. That's one of the things that I don't like about a back bar, is you have this big, you know, extra piece hanging off to the side of your bow. It's really sleek, it's smooth, it's, you know, you can kind of micro adjust it in, out, up, down, and kind of get your bow balancing to kind of counterweight some of that quiver on the other side without something really large hanging off of the side of your bow. I love that. Really it's one of my other favorite features about these bows. So let's go ahead, we'll throw some up here, and obviously because, you know, of this bow, the draw weight, I'm gonna run it through that chronograph before we go outside, because I'm just eager to see. And we'll do the same thing as we did last with the Bear Refine. We'll do a 440 grain arrow, and then we'll do that 500 grain arrow and get to see a little bit difference. But let's go ahead, we'll sling a couple. We'll give you our kind of initial thoughts. And I really love the color of this. It's called Covert Black, and I usually don't like a computerized camo, but this one is really cool. It has like a little honeycomb texture in there. The finishes on these bows are awesome. It's like a really, really soft Line-X rubber. They feel really good to the touch. I feel like it would be really warm in the field. That's another thing that I really like about these, is that finish. It's really unique. So let's go ahead. We'll got our 300 grain, our 300 spine, full metal jacket. So that's something else I had to reach out to APA is when you get up into 90 and 100 pound draw weight, my first thought was, what arrow are you using? You know? Okay, so what they said is for the 90 and 100 pound draw weights, they recommend a Black Eagle Rampage 150 spine arrow. And again, I have no perspective with big game. So, you know, I can't tell you or not if there's going to be a little sacrifice on this bow here in a second when we start shooting it. Is that sacrifice that you're going to lose maybe in the hold? Obviously I probably in the draw cycle, stability, who knows? We'll see here in a second. Is that going to be worth what you're getting with bringing that kinetic energy? I don't know. I haven't hunted a huge game. I don't know how much extra kinetic energy you're going to need. I will say, and I've mentioned in the past, I have a buddy who shot a bison with a 63-pound draw weight and it full clear, past the, a clear pass all the way through. So, is a bison and a moose, are they the anatomy so different that you would need this? I don't know. So again, I can't give you that perspective, but I can kind of give you where you are going to sacrifice, and that's what we'll go over in a second. But 100-pound, 90 to 100-pound draw weight seems really excessive. For the 80 pounds, 200 spine Easton Full Metal Jacket, we're going to do, or maybe a Dangerous Game 250 spine, but we're going to do the 300 spine Full Metal Jacket. Even though it's not what they recommend, I think this should be fine. But let's go ahead. We'll sling a couple. Ooh. Man, that is one that's strenuous on the arm. I can feel it in my bicep just from one pull. So you got, that's a tough pull. It has a really nice big hump right in the middle where it kind of plateaus, and you got to get past that. And then once you're back, I would say you're putting a lot of strain to keep it back. Where it wants to jump forward on you, you can feel it wanting to jump forward on you, and you're consciously having to really pull backwards with that. Again, so, the difference between the Black Mamba and the DG King Cobra, there's a huge difference, in the way that they draw, the way they hold, just from 2 shots. Very different bow, even though they look almost identical. And again, this one is to bring the heat, to really punch through some thick hide, some bones, something like that. Is it going to do it? Yeah, this thing is humming. You can tell this thing is pumping an arrow. You wouldn't want to hold it back for very long. I wouldn't want this thing, those cams turning back over on me and me letting this down without firing it. I feel like it's going to rip your shoulder out of socket if you do, and that's why I'm so consciously kind of holding it back. I think you can get more and more. So again, even by the 3rd shot, I'm getting more and more familiar with how the draw cycle is and what I'm anticipating and where I need to pull. But that first one is so kind of shocking that it felt so hard to get it back. But now you can kind of anticipate, where you need to give it an extra pull. But for being 80 pounds, man, for being 80 pounds, I feel like there's a little vibration in the hand, but not as much as I was anticipating. And then also, I grew up hunting with, 2 limbs, 1 top, 1 bottom, solo cams from Matthews. The stability on these things are nice. They hold pretty well for a really slim platform bow. Even this one with 80% let off at 80-pound draw, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. Once you get it back. Now again, you're having to put a lot of energy to keep it back, but it holds nicely and it balances nicely. Last one. Gotta save some energy before we get outside. And let's run this thing through this chronograph and see what it's gonna get, because man, you can tell this thing's humming. All right, moment of truth, first 80-pound limb draw weight bow we've had in here. Another variable to change, I'm adding an extra ½ inch because it was a set module, and I went with 30 inches on these. Even the 30 inch feels a little bitty short for me. So again, that's changed in something I've noticed over the starting this bow review process to not 30 inches on every bow does not feel the same. So sometimes you need a little bit more, sometimes you even need a little bit less. It's weird, it just kind of goes from manufacturer to manufacturer. But let's go ahead, let's put some here. We'll start off with that 500 grain, 300 spine full metal jacket, 80% let off, 80 pound draw weight, 30 inch draw length. Let's see where this lands. 324. So obviously, you know, by far the fastest bow we've had in here. And I think once we get to that 440 grain arrow in a second, it's probably gonna get up almost to 350, I would say. But man, that is fast. So that's 317. And I think, you know, if you substantially get that arrow weight up to what they're recommending when you hunt with these higher draw weights, it would probably, my guess would be that it would be right in there in the 300s, like some of the faster bows that we've seen with the other specs that we've used throughout the year. So let's do one more. 333. Man, that's fast. Let's go ahead, we'll do the, and again, I'm a little sketched with this. This is a lighter weighted arrow, 440 grains. But let's see. That's only 336. So that didn't actually change a whole lot, but let's go ahead, let's shoot it again. So there you go. I mean, tough to pull back, tough to hold. If you're not putting your full amount of attention and energy and effort into this thing, pulling it back, it's gonna wanna pull forward on you. It's shredded my bicep. That's 350, and that's kind of right what I suspected. So again, to save a little energy, we're just gonna put a couple through. We still got this freestyle to shoot, but man, that is crazy fast. I can't imagine once you get up to that 90 pound and 100 pound, you know, what that's gonna pump. Probably a 600, 650 grain arrow. It's impressive. All right, so I feel like we finally have come full circle with these reviews. We started out reviewing in the winter, then we kind of went through the summer, fall, and now we're back to freezing cold weather. I'm gonna shoot this thing as much as I can. I'm not trying to pull a bicep. We still have a month left of hunting season, and I got plenty of tags to fill. This thing is brutal to pull back and hold, especially at 80 pounds. I think at 70 pounds, it would really taper off and maybe, you know, smooth out a little bit, but at 80, this thing is rough. So I'll shoot as much as I can. We have 3D targets here, a little bit longer one shooting from the gazebo like we do. We'll do the whole freestyle shoot, just probably not put as many arrows through as we would. So let's go ahead. We'll go bore. And this thing fires nice. It's an absolute cannon, as you can imagine. I would hate to get stuck holding this thing back for more than 10 seconds. I think the pins, the motion of the pins, the stability would drastically, you know, start moving and the stability go down the longer you have to hold this. I mean, it's gruesome to kind of keep back in full draw. These little cams, they roll over, but it's like nothing. There's almost no back wall, even with your limb stops on there. Man, it's pretty tough. So we'll go kicking buck. I can't imagine what this thing would do to a critter, you know, to like a whitetail. I feel like there's no way this wouldn't get a clean pass through, even if it hit bone. I mean, this thing is just an absolute beast. Let's jump over to the other side and we'll do some longer shots. So you have, you know, especially online, like you'll see guys that pull back 80 pounds. And for the most part, I think they would, be considered larger game hunters. I don't know any whitetail hunters that pull back 80 pounds personally. I know there's some guys out there that, there was a comment, lift heavy weights, pull heavy bows, get pass-throughs on one of my posts. I understand the idea. And I guess it's up to you personally whether or not you feel like what you're sacrificing in the stability mostly, you know, if that's worth, you know, and again, maybe you're somebody who's had a couple, you know, you've hit a couple shoulders, or you've not have a couple passes, or, you know, I had a buddy shot at a deer not too long ago. It looked great on film. It only penetrated like 4 inches for some reason. So, you know, and he was pulling back 70 pounds. So you don't know. So you have a couple of those experiences. Maybe you feel like, okay, now I need something heavier that brings more kinetic energy. I personally have not had an experience where I have felt that. I shot with 60 pounds for years. I've never, ever had a problem. I feel like if you place good shots and you wait for that broadside quartering away shot, you know, if you're patient and you wait for that shot and you place a good shot, I don't think you need more than 50 pounds. This seems excessive to me, but I also am a little bit intrigued on what this thing can do. I mean, I can't imagine an iron willhead broadhead on this 80 pounds. I mean, this would just absolutely annihilate something. Let's go, we'll go gray wolf. You know, and then the other thing is, you know, practice. I mean, do you see yourself buying this bow and practicing as much as I would say you probably should be? I can't imagine somebody getting out here and just daily repping this thing all the time. I'll be honest with you. I'm a little hesitant, not scared, but just kind of hesitant pulling this thing back. I mean, you can tell it's a very powerful bow. There's an extreme amount of energy that's being stored in these limbs. I mean, it's just, it keeps you mindful of like what you're doing. I mean, it's very, very powerful. Not something I'd want to pull back every day, but again, maybe for that special trip to kill that really large game, then maybe this is what you feel like you would need. Yeah, and obviously I think because of this, the amount of energy that's being stored and released, you know, you can really hear it. It's loud. But then again, we just did the speed test inside. These arrows are going 315, you know, 320, and then the lighter one's 350 feet per second. Does that sound really matter when an arrow is traveling that fast? I don't know, but let's do a couple more a little bit longer. So now black bear at 40. I'm gonna skip out on the full draw stall today. It's cold. I got a lot of season left. You know, I got some tags to fill. The last thing I want to do is injure myself. Holding this bow for a minute, it just sounds brutal. Again, it's real cold out. I'm not real warmed up, so I'm going to skip out on that. I'm going to assume that, you know, by the end of that minute, it's going to be very tough to dial in a nice shot. We'll go black bear 40, and then we'll go up to the elk at 50. I don't think I have had to put as much energy keeping a bow back ever as I've had to do this. I mean, once you get it back, you immediately think, you know, you kind of tense up and immediately start applying pressure backwards just to make sure it doesn't roll forward on you. All right, let's go up the hill. We'll do a couple up top. All right, so something else. You can always see it with the bows that get the highest speeds. Obviously, this one's the highest by far. I'm using just a variation of your 20 pin. You know, so for the gray wolf, we're shooting at the bottom of the belly. You know, same with the black bear. Now I'm shooting kind of dead on at the 50. But there's not much variation. I mean, this arrow doesn't drop at all, almost. It's incredible to see the flight of these arrows. I've never ever seen an arrow on a string like this. It's like a bullet. It's like a crossbow. I mean, it's like a bolt, you know, there's no drop to it. I feel the kinetic energy you get even out to 50, it's just devastating. I mean, if you're wanting to bring the most energy to an arrow, you know, the most penetration, I think the King Cobra dangerous game, probably even at 70, is very, very powerful. Once you get up in that 80, 90, 100 options, which I think are crazy, but at least the 80, I mean, I don't think you can get much more kinetic energy than this. And something else is, I think, I'm gonna shoot one more on that elk. I think the draw cycle, even though it was so brutal in the beginning, I've always said this, but as you shoot things more and more and more, it's not that they become more familiar, but you can kind of anticipate where you need to pull a little extra and kind of get through those humps, and like it will smooth out just from your familiarity with the draw cycle. It's still tough, but I feel like I'm getting used to it a little bit easier. That's tough. I think that's gonna be the last one for a second. That last one was brutal. Getting it past that last little bit towards the end and then holding it. I feel like I got a pump going in my bicep from drawing that thing. But again, you know, if you're on the pursuit of an animal, you know, 1, 2, I guess 3 shots, maybe at most, you know, that you would be provided with, you know, to bring something down. So place one good shot, which I think is very, very possible if you practice a ton with this. But man, it sure brings the heat. Okay, APA, King Cobra, dangerous game. I love the tactical black finish on this thing. I love the finishes on these bows. They're kind of like this sticky Linex, I don't know, just a cool different finish. I love so much about these bows. This company, the owner, everybody I've dealt with from APA has been an absolute pleasant person to deal with. Just the nicest Canadian people you could possibly think of. I can't wait to see what they're gonna put out in 23. I think he just released something on social media. But for me, it's like, what else could you guys think of? And again, when you have a mind like that, that's just constantly working, trying to perfect something, thinking of anything that you could possibly need when you're in the field, eventually he's gonna come up with something. I'm excited to see what it is. The grade, I think even though it's 80 pounds, a couple of variables change. I'm gonna go ahead and give it the 12 out of 10 because doing the math in my head, I think even at 70 pounds, this thing is pushing over 290. Okay, so we're just gonna assume and give it the 12 out of 10. The speeds that it did reach with the settings it's on, fucking incredible. I don't think I've ever shot a bow that it was this fast, personally. I mean, just seeing at the 50-yard, the arc on the arrow, it's nothing. It's like a crossbow, like shooting a bolt. Impressive. I can't imagine what this thing would do to any game. So 12 out of 10 to start. I gave it, for quality, I gave it an 8 out of 10, just like the Black Mamba. I think there is so much going on to this bow, especially with the self-tuning system. There are so many little screws, nuts, bolts, stuff like that. I'm weary of that kind of stuff. So I gave it an 8 out of 10 for the quality. I do love the riser, the finish, and even like these strings, the draw stops, the limb stops, I'm sorry. There's just one screw holding them in there, and the more you shoot this thing, a couple times they did get loose and I had to kind of like retighten them down. Appeal, 9 out of 10. These things are super cool to me. I love all the features. I love the shape of the riser. I love the front handle on top of this thing. Just a lot of cool stuff. I love the way they look. Technology, we gave it a 10 out of a 10. These bows, right out of the box, you don't need anything else, and more than this, than anything, because you can set up the rest with that little rod on the riser. I mean, you can tune it. You can get this thing ready to go by yourself. Even if you're new to archery, I feel like the concept of all of this is so simple that if you just took a little bit of time, read about it, I think you could do it on your own. It's honestly impressive. So 10 out of 10 there. Performance, I think I gave the Black Mamba an 8 out of 10. Slim platform, little instability there. On this one, I think it even increased a little bit with the weight of those limbs, the shorter brace height. I went ahead and gave it a 7 out of 10 for performance. I mean, it was absolutely brutal to pull back and hold. Again, and as you saw towards the end, I think the last shot, I shot right onto that elk. But the more you shoot it, the more tired you get. I mean, I couldn't imagine hiking a mountain, being fatigued, and then having to draw this thing back and feeling comfortable letting an arrow go. That's just me. I could not imagine, though, in my hunting scenarios ever needing this much draw weight and kinetic energy anyway. But I think that's a real honest assessment. It's tough. It's tough. So it's something that you would have to be physically prepared for and then practice a ton with it and get more familiar with the bow. But it is brutal to pull back and especially to hold that thing for a long period of time. I didn't even attempt the full draw stall. And the reason being is it's freezing outside. I kind of felt some strain in my shoulders and biceps anyway. I felt like a minute holding this thing could potentially cause an injury. And we're in the middle of my season, so I really don't risk much with so much season left. So, and with that being said too, that's kind of why we've been moving a little bit slower. This season has consumed me, kind of ups and downs, and I've been putting in a lot of work, so I haven't had much time in here, but we are back at it. We have tons of different bows in here already, including the Carbon 1 from Bowtech. And we are kind of sifting through what we are going to do next. I'm not going to purchase all the bows. I think companies are going to have to make some real honest, good changes for me to go out there and repurchase some of these bows. You know, we want to review new stuff, and slight minor changes aren't enough for me at this point. So, but we do have some cool stuff in the works. So I think this bow in the end was $1,500. With tax, we'll only get to make up for 1 point. So that's 47, 94 out of 100. Same grade as the Black Mamba. You know, they kind of give and take a little bit performance, speed, and they kind of balance out right there in the middle. I love what APA is doing. I can't wait to see what they release at the end of this week for 2023. Companies like this that have so much going to them, I'm always interested, like what else could you put on these bows? So we'll see. But make sure you subscribe to the channel if you found anything in this video that helped your bow buying process. We know there's so much out there to sift through and to navigate through. We want to give you honest assessments and kind of help your process of you buying a bow and kind of guide you through it if we can help. So, and then obviously follow us on Instagram too. That's where you're going to know what bows are coming up next and what to look forward to and what to look out for. So above all, make sure you get your reps in on the daily, even when it's freezing cold like it is today. We'll see you next Saturday.